Let's move on. It is great news for Hindus and Buddhists in India. In just 2 months, they will be able to trek to Mount Kailash from the Indian territory. Up until now, pilgrims had to travel to Tibet to start their journey.
Mount Kailash is one of the most mysterious places on the entire planet. It sits deep in the Tibetan Himalayas, and it has never been climbed by any human being, not a single person music in all of recorded history. But that's not even the strangest part. For thousands of years, monks, music pilgrims, scientists, and explorers have all reported things around this mountain that they simply cannot explain. Strange phenomena, bizarre experiences, things that don't follow the normal rules of the world we live in. And now in recent years, Tibetan monks who have spent decades music living near the mountain have started speaking publicly about what they truly believe is happening. Music there, and what they're saying is deeply unsettling. This is music, the story of one of Earth's greatest mysteries, and the shocking truth that has been hiding in plain sight of music for centuries. The mountain nobody has ever climbed. When you look at Mount Kailash music from a distance, it looks less like a natural mountain and more like something that was deliberately constructed. It is perfectly symmetrical in a way that seems almost impossible for nature to achieve on its own. Mountains far taller and far music more dangerous than Kailash have been climbed by humans. Everest has been summited over 10,000 times. And music K2, which many climbers consider far more deadly than Everest, has music been climbed dozens of times. But Mount Kailash, which is technically not even among the world's 100 tallest peaks, has never music once been successfully climbed, and it's not for lack of trying. Over the centuries, many expedition teams have attempted to reach the summit. Every single one of them has either turned back voluntarily or been forced to abandon their attempt by circumstances they struggled. Music to fully explain. In 2001, China officially banned any climbing of Mount Kailash at music, the request of Hindu and Buddhist religious groups who consider the mountain sacred. But even before that ban, the mountain had already developed a well-earned music reputation for being impossible to summit. Climbers reported sudden and extreme weather changes that appeared out of nowhere. Others reported strange disorientation and confusion at altitude levels where they should have been perfectly fine. Some reported that no matter how long they climbed, music seemed to get any closer to the top. The mountain just seemed not to want to be climbed. Music, and that feeling was very hard to shake. The river of the world. Now, here's where things start to get genuinely strange. At the base of Mount Kailash sits Lake Mansarov, which at an altitude of 4,590 meters is one of the highest freshwater lakes in the world. And from the general region around Kailash, 4 of Asia's most important rivers have their sources. The Indus, the Brahmaputra, the Sutlej, and the Karnali all flow outward from the Kailash region, and they flow in the 4 cardinal directions: music north, south, east, and west. These 4 rivers collectively provide water to nearly 2 billion people across India, music China, Nepal, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Scientists who have studied this have called it one of the most extraordinary hydrological coincidences on the planet. The idea, music, that 4 massive rivers with sources near a single mountain would flow in perfectly opposite directions almost defies what we understand about natural geography. River systems simply don't behave this way under normal circumstances. Ancient music, Hindu texts called the Puranas actually described this phenomenon thousands of years before modern science confirmed it. The text described Kailash as the source of 4 music great rivers flowing out to the 4 corners of the world. For a very long time, historians assumed this was mythology. Then satellite mapping confirmed the rivers were real and their sources were exactly where the ancient text of music said they were. This raised a very uncomfortable question. How did people writing thousands of years ago know the precise geographical layout of a remote corner of music Tibet they almost certainly never visited? What the monks know. For generations, Tibetan monks living in monasteries near Mount Kailash, music, have kept detailed oral records of everything that has happened around the mountain. These records, music that go back centuries, and they contain accounts of phenomena that monks have observed and experienced the music firsthand. In recent years, particularly after the growing global interest in Kailash, following several viral scientific discussions, some of these monks have started sharing portions of these accounts more publicly than ever before, and what they describe is deeply unsettling. Multiple monks across different monasteries have independently reported the same experience, music near the mountain. Time seems to move differently there, not in a vague poetic sense, but in a measurable literal music sense. Monks who spend extended periods near the mountain report that their hair and fingernails grow at an extraordinary music rate, far faster than normal biological processes would allow. Some accounts describe nail and hair growth that would normally take weeks, music appearing to happen within a single day or two of being near the mountain. Several Western researchers who have visited the Kailash region over the past 2 decades have reported similar things. A group of Russian scientists who visited the area in the early 2000s came back music, claiming that they had aged at an accelerated rate during their time near the mountain. Some reported that nail growth they would typically expect over 2 to 3 weeks, music, had occurred in just 12 hours. Now, it is important to be clear that these accounts have not been scientifically verified under controlled laboratory conditions. But the fact that people from completely different cultures, different eras, and different parts of the world are reporting in music the exact same phenomenon independently of each other is something that is very hard to simply dismiss. The monks have a name for this. They call it the mountain's breath. They believe Kailash exists on a different frequency of time than the rest, the music of the world, and that getting too close to it pulls you into that frequency temporarily. The shape that shouldn't exist. Here is the detail about Mount Kailash, music that has genuinely troubled geologists and researchers for decades. The mountain is shaped like a perfect pyramid, not approximately like a pyramid, not sort of like a pyramid in a loose general sense. A strikingly precise four-sided pyramid with faces that align almost exactly to the compass points and music angles that are remarkably uniform on all sides. Natural geological formations almost never produce this kind of music clean, precise symmetry. Mountains form through tectonic collision, erosion, and volcanic activity, messy, chaotic forces. Music that produced jagged, irregular shapes, the kind of clean, precise symmetry. Music that Kailash displays is not something that geology naturally tends to produce. Russian researcher Ernst Music Moldashev, who led multiple scientific expeditions to the Kailash region in the late 1990s and early 2000s, made a claim that generated music enormous controversy. He argued after his studies that Kailash showed signs of being a man-made, or at the very least, music artificially altered structure, a pyramid constructed by an ancient music civilization so far in the past that the natural world had slowly begun to reclaim it. He pointed to what he described as geometric precision in the mountain's faces in the presence of several smaller pyramid-shaped music formations around Kailash that seemed to mirror its structure. The mainstream scientific community, largely music, rejected this theory, and it remains unproven.
Mount
But even
Kailash is
scientists,
not the
music
tallest
who
peak in the
dismiss the
Himalayas.
pyramid theory
It is
acknowledge
not
that
the
the
most
mountain's
dangerous.
symmetry is
Yet in
unusually
all of
striking
recorded
music
history,
and is not
not one
straightforwardly
human
explained
has
by
ever
standard
stood
geological
on
processes.
some shape of the mountain
The conversation
raises
about how
even
exactly
deeper
Kailash
questions.
came to look the way
From
it
a
does
distance,
has not been
Mount
fully
Kailash
settled.
does
The
not
wall
look
of ice here
chaotic.
is something that is
It
completely
looks
verifiable
precise.
and documented,
Four
and it
sharp
raises
faces
serious
rise
questions on
toward
its
the
own.
sky.
So,
Clean
despite being
lines,
only
clear angles,
6,638 meters
almost
tall, a
perfectly
height that
aligned with the
experienced
compass
climbers
points,
regularly
not
summit on
roughly
other
aligned,
mountains.
not loosely
Music, the upper
shaped,
portion of Kailash appears to
strikingly
be
symmetrical.
functionally inaccessible.
Most
This
mountains
is not
form
just
through
because of the
violent
China
tectonic
climbing
collision.
band.
Plates
Before the
crash
ban,
together,
numerous
rock
skilled
folds,
climbers attempted
ice
to
carves
approach the upper
uneven
faces
scars
of the
over
mountain, and
thousands
all of them
years.
encountered the same
The result
problem.
is usually
Snorts the
jagged
ice on
and
the upper
irregular,
walls of Kailash
but
forms in
Kailash
configurations
appears
that are
different.
unlike normal
Geologists
glacial ice. The
confirm
angles
the
are too
mountain
steep,
is
the
made of
surface is
layered
too vertical,
sedimentary
the ice
rock
too
pushed
unpredictably
upward
shifting.
by the
Multiple
collision of the
expedition leaders
Indian
who
and
attempted
Eurasian
routes up
plates.
Kaiash's faces before
Vertical bedding
2001
plains and
reported that the
glacial
mountain
erosion
seemed to
likely
actively resist
shaped its
approach.
steep sides.
That routes which appeared viable from a distance became impassable at close range in ways they hadn't anticipated. There is also the matter of the weather. The atmospheric conditions around the summit of Kailash are extraordinarily unpredictable. Clear skies can turn into violent storms within minutes in the Kailash region, in ways that experienced Himalayan climbers describe as being unlike anything they've encountered on other peaks in the same range. The storms seem localized, music specifically around the mountain itself, and they arrive with almost no warning. Tibetan monks do not find any of this surprising. They have always maintained that the mountain is actively music protected not by human hands, but by forces that operate by rules humans do not fully understand. The hidden lakes and music underground theories surrounding Mount Kailash are two extraordinary music lakes that sit almost side by side. Lake Mansarovar, which music Hindus consider one of the holiest bodies of water on Earth, and Lake Rakshastal, which is a saltwater lake directly beside it. The two lakes are separated by a narrow strip of land, music, and they have almost opposite qualities. Mansarovar is a freshwater lake, calm and still. Rakshastal is music saline, rough, and windswept. Ancient Hindu texts, music describe Mansarovar as the lake of the gods and Rakshastal as the lake of the demon king Ravana. Even their physical characteristics seem to mirror this ancient music description, but here's what has recently attracted serious scientific attention. Sonar studies and geological surveys of the Kailash region have indicated the possible music presence of large underground chambers and tunnel networks beneath the mountain itself. These findings are preliminary and have not been fully explored or confirmed music, but they have been noted in geological reports examining the unusual seismic properties of the Kailash area. The region sits in a seismically active music zone, and the way seismic waves travel through the mountain suggests the interior may not be entirely solid in the way other mountains in the range are. Tibetan monks have spoken about underground chambers beneath Kailash for centuries. In the Bone tradition, there are detailed descriptions of what they call hidden lands beneath the mountain. Music, sacred spaces accessible only to those who have reached a sufficient level of spiritual development. For a long time, these were interpreted purely as spiritual metaphors. The geological surveys have not proven that these chambers exist, but they have not ruled them out either. Music, what 2025 brought to light. In 2025, a collection of Tibetan scholars and senior monks from monasteries in the Kailash region made public statements, music, that drew significant international attention. Speaking through translators, they described accounts passed down through their monastic lineages, accounts that they say have been carefully preserved for hundreds of years, but rarely shared outside their communities. They described Kailash not as a mountain in the traditional sense, but what they called a cosmic pillar, music, a point where the physical world and other dimensions of existence intersect. Music, they explained that the phenomena people experience near the mountain, music time distortion, disorientation, the impossibility of climbing it are not random. They are consistent with what their tradition has always said about the nature of Kailash. The mountain does not follow physical rules because it does not belong entirely to the physical world. They also address the pyramid shape directly in music. In the Bone tradition, it is explicitly stated that the shape of Kailash is not natural, but was given to it long before recorded human history by forces their tradition does not describe music as human. They do not claim to know exactly what those forces were, but they are clear that the mountain's shape is intentional. Music. These are of course religious and spiritual claims, and they cannot be verified through scientific methods, but the monks make a fair point in return. The music scientific methods that have been applied to Kailash so far have not produced satisfying explanations for its symmetry. Music, its effect on time perception, its rivers, or its resistance to climbing. The mystery to music remains genuinely open. So what do you think is really going on at Mount Kailash? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Music, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button right now, and while you're at it, hit the notification bell, music, so you will never miss any videos from